So yesterday, Sayadaw explained on Kusita, indolent or lazy person. So indolent or lazy person is lazy to practice the high-class Satipatthana practice, who is cowardly in the practice, who is coward to do the practice, to make effort. So the person who is coward to lose sleep, and also in a meditation center to live in austerity, she is coward to live in austerity, losing sleep, and not delighting in the Satipatthana practice. So she is called a Kusita person, indolent or lazy person. Lacking courage, lacking effort, the person cannot dispel the kilesa defilement. So it is viriya or effort which does not accept kilesa defilement from entering into the mind. So lacking viriya, yogi fails to dispel the kilesa defilement. So yogis are asked to keep the attention on the abdomen. Yogis are asked to note rising and falling of the abdomen. If yogi does not put effort to note the presently arising object, then she will fail to note the object such as rising and falling of the abdomen. So not exerting effort to note the object, mindfulness, sati, will not develop. So she will not have mindfulness. So lack of mindfulness, his or her mind will be polluted by kilesa defilement. Sati, mindfulness, can protect or guard the mind so that kilesa defilements cannot enter the mind. So this mindfulness is the protection. It is the guard or protection so that kilesa defilements cannot enter into the mind. It is called arakha. So Satipatthana, sati, mindfulness, is the protection so that kilesa defilements cannot enter. So if there is no mindfulness, the mind will not be protected from kilesa defilements. So having no mindfulness, there will not be blockage, the blockage of kilesa defilement. So having sati can block the defilement from entering into the mind. It is called avarana, blocking the kilesa defilement. So having mindfulness present, there will be blockage of kilesa defilement so that these defilements have no chance to enter into the mind. So it is mindfulness which guards or protects the mind away from kilesa defilements. Without the help of viriya, without the help of effort, mindfulness cannot arise. In order to develop mindfulness, one should put ardent effort in order to note the object rising and falling of the abdomen. By noting with effort on the rising and falling of the abdomen, mindfulness, sati, will develop, and thus the mind will be guarded, protected away from the defilement. So in noting yogi should not be slack, sluggish, or cold, but instead yogi should be noting the presently arising object with alertness, readiness, and active. One should be active. So in order to push the noting mind towards the object rising and falling of the abdomen, one should exert effort. So one should invest this effort so that the noting mind will reach the object of meditation. In other words, you have to take the strength of effort in order to be able to note the presently arising object. So when exerting effort in noting the object, the noting mind will stick onto the object of meditation, and thus sati, mindfulness, will develop. At the moment when mindfulness is present, then the defilements cannot enter into the mind. So at the moment of being able to note the object, there will not be defilements such as greed, hatred, aversion, or so on. So the mind is guarded, protected away from the defilement. So arakha means guarding or protecting. So this sati is guarding, protecting the mind, and it is also called avarana. Avarana means blockage. Sati is the blockage. Sati is the blockage keeping away the defilement from entering into the mind. So if the person does not exert effort, then sati, mindfulness, cannot arise. That's why it is very important to exert effort so as to develop sati, mindfulness. If the mind is lax, sluggish, and lax, then sati, mindfulness, cannot arise. If sati is absent, then the path of unwholesomeness, the path of kilesa, will open up because there is no protection. Having sati, there will be protection. If there is no sati, there will not be protection or blockage, and thus the path to unwholesomeness will open. So when the path of unwholesomeness is open, then there is no security in the mind because kilesa, defilement, will enter. So if there is no security, there will not be freedom from the defilement, and thus there will not be any peace. So yogi is losing this kind of benefit. Yogi is losing this protection, security, freedom, and peace of mind because she failed to exert effort. So losing this security, freedom, and peace of mind is due to lack of effort. If the yogi is slow to note the object, being lazy, sluggish to note the object, then sati will not be present, and thus the path of unwholesomeness will be open. So defilements and unwholesomeness will enter into the mind by leaps and bounds. Sati protects or guards the mind so that kilesa, defilements, cannot enter into the mind. So having mindfulness present, there will be security from the kilesa, defilements, and thus the mind will not be agitated. The mind does not get agitated with greed, hatred, and so on. That's why the mind becomes free. The mind will have freedom away from defilement. So when the mind is free from the defilement, when there is freedom from defilement, the mind does not get agitated, and thus there will be peace of mind. So in order to develop sati mindfulness, one should have effort. The moment one fails to put effort, then for that moment, mindfulness cannot arise. Practicing Satipatthana meditation is to guard and protect the mind so that kilesa defilement cannot enter into the mind. So through Satipatthana practice, one is cultivating, developing wholesome mind so that the mind will become from small to big, from tender to ripe, from weak to strong. So making many of these increasing this wholesome kind of mind is called bhavana. So if the person is lazy, sluggish, and slow and cowardly, one will lose all these benefits. So not having effort, the mind will not be calm and collected on the object, so one will also lose samadhi concentration. Only if samadhi concentration is strong, then wisdom, knowledge can arise. So if there is no effort, sati cannot arise, and thus samadhi will not develop, and also one will not gain knowledge. One will be losing. So not having knowledge, there will not be any prudence, there will be delusion, not knowing, not able to know distinctly between what is beneficial, what is unbeneficial, what is suitable or not. One does not have the power of reflecting what is right or wrong. So just like the saying, Papa Saming Remedy Mano, the mind has the nature of taking delight in inferior things. The mind has the nature to take delight in inferior things which can make the mind degraded. So lack of control in the mind will go wherever it pleases. Usually the people from the sensual world, they take delight in sensual pleasure, wanting to see good things, wanting to hear good sounds, wanting to have good taste, good touch, and so on. So usually people from the worldly realm, they take delight in kama vitaka, they take delight in thoughts about sensual pleasure. So having this wrong thought of sensual pleasure, how will the mind be? Will it be clean or unclean? Will it be dirty or clean? Will it be rude or tamed? Will it be gross or refined? Will it be lovable or detestable? You can think how the mind will be when there is wrongful thought of sensual pleasure. So having this kama vitaka, thoughts about sensual pleasure, the mind will get mixed, or the mind will be entangling with all these wrongful thoughts. So if the mind is entangled or mixed with these sensual thoughts, if one indulges in these sensual thoughts, there will be sexual misconduct and so on. So indulging in greed, one will end up committing sexual misconduct with someone who one is not relating to. someone one is not married to, and there can be sexual misconduct. The ladies can have sexual misconduct with someone who is other people's spouse, and also men, they can end up having sexual affair with someone who is married to other person. So in this way, by indulging in these greed, one can have this all sexual relation which one is not supposed to. And also, when one indulges in greed, one can take intoxicants. Some people have the view that as a man, one should have fun of everything. One should have every kind of fun. So having this idea that men should have every kind of fun, they take intoxicants and they become addicted. So when they become addicted to intoxicants, they become slaves of this intoxicant. This is due to indulging in greed. They become slaves to intoxicants because they follow the force of the lobha, greed. And of course, there are also other defilements that can arise. When there is ill will, dissatisfaction, there will be Theravada vitaka, thoughts about ill will, and it will become a stream. So when there is Theravada vitaka, thoughts about ill will, then there will not be patience. And also, if there is something wrong, then one can get very angry easily. Even in associating with family members, she does not have any patience. There will not be forgiveness. If there is something wrong, then she will be cursing, angry, not forgiving other people. So there is no patience, no forgiveness, no sacrifice. So there will not be any compassion or consideration towards others. So when this ill will takes place, the mind will get mixed up and entangled with wrong things. And also there will be wish to torment or torture others. There will be rudeness, cruelty. And also one can have jealousy and envy. If others are having success, one will become envious, and one can also have jealousy, not wanting others to be as successful as she is. So there will be wish to give trouble to others. It is called vihinsa vitaka. It means the thought of torturing, tormenting, giving trouble to others. So if these wrongful thoughts are taking place, the mind will be mixed up, entangled with wrongful things, and thus there will be many social problems that cannot be solved. When the mind is weak, then she does not have any spiritual resistance, so there can be problems like having tension, stress, depression, and so on. And one can have all these social problems that cannot be solved in a worldly way. In order to solve these social problems, one should put effort in the practice so that one will develop sati and the mind will become strengthened. If the mind is not strong or matured, if she comes across difficulty, she will not have any spiritual resistance. she will get elated or depressed by meeting good or bad things. So if the mind is not matured due to the lack of wisdom, then the mind cannot stay in balance, or the mind cannot stay in equilibrium when meeting ups and downs of life. So there should be maturity of the mind so that one can keep the mind in equilibrium, or one can keep the mind balanced even though she meets with good and bad objects. So in order to keep the mind matured, one should not be lazy. One should exert effort so that one will gain all this mental strength and one's mind will get matured. So a lazy person cannot gain the maturity of mind. So when others look at this lazy person, they will see that the lazy person is not getting any benefit. The lazy person not doing his or her own welfare, his or her own benefit, let alone others' benefit. So lazy person is cursed or blamed by others because this lazy person does not even work for his or her own benefit. So Sayadaw hopes that the yogis who are here will exert effort so that these yogis will get the guarantee in life. So Sayadaw will also like to deeply encourage the yogi to exert effort so that you will not be blamed by others. Sayadaw will like to urge you deeply to exert effort. Even though one has the opportunity, even though one has all the circumstances to have courage in the practice, if she is lazy and sluggish, there will be a lot of loss. So Sayadaw explains what will be the loss if one fails to put effort in the practice, if one is lazy and sluggish. First of all, if one does not exert effort, one will fail or one will lose to note the presently arising object. So first of all, one is losing this effort or the courage which dispels, which does not accept the kilesa defilement. So not exerting effort, the mind will not be on the object of meditation. The mind will be superficial. The mind will not stick to the object, but instead the noting mind will float or will be wobbling. The mind does not sink into the object. So the mind will be floating away from the object of meditation, and thus mithya vitaka, wrongful thoughts, can arise. So if there are wrongful thoughts, there will not be nekkhamma vitaka, there will not be good thought about renunciation, and not having compassion, one will also be losing avihimsa vitaka, thought of non-cruelty. So having the defilement of envy and jealousy, one will be losing the good state of Metta and Karuna, loving kindness and compassion. So having this Metta Vitakka, having these wrongful thoughts, one is losing the good thoughts, good thought of renunciation, good thought of non-ill will, good thought of non-cruelty. So only if viriya, effort, is present, then sati, mindfulness, can arise. So if one does not have viriya, then the mind will not be guarded or protected, and thus one is losing protection of the mind because he, she is not exerting effort. So when the mind is not protected, then kilesa, defilement, enter into the mind. And also, if there is no mindfulness, the mind will not be calm and collected on the object, and thus he, she is losing samadhi concentration. In order to keep the note mind face to face or direct with the object, one needs to aim and direct the mind towards the object. So if the note mind is not direct with the object, it means that one does not have aim. So he, she is losing this aim or initial application of the note mind onto the object, and thus he, she is losing Samma Vitakka because he, she fails to aim the mind towards the object. So when the noting mind is not on the object of meditation, he, she does not know the true nature of the object. So the person, the lazy person, will also lose the knowledge into the true nature of the object. So in this way, the yogi who is lazy or indolent is failing to develop samadhi khanda, group of concentration. So the indolent person who indulges in mithya vitakka, who indulges in wrongful thought, will also commit bad behavior by body, speech and mind. The true, genuine welfare of a person is sila, samadhi, panya, morality, concentration and wisdom. Because these three trainings, sila, samadhi, panya, can uplift the person, whoever practices systematically. So that's why it is said that sila, samadhi, panya are true welfare of a person. If the person fails to note the presently arising object, then he, she is not developing the three training, sila, samadhi, panya. If the person fails to note for one moment, he, she is losing the training for one moment. If he, she fails to note for 1 minute, there will be 60 moments of losing. And if he, she fails to note for 5 minutes, then there will be 300 times of losing. So that's why a lazy or indolent person will have a lot of loss, a lot of failure. That's why one should not be lazy or indolent, because lazy or indolent person will be losing, will be failing. He, she will not be making any profit in the practice. failing to exert effort because he, she is relenting his or her body and life, the person is losing because he, she did not put effort. So there will be loss by lack of effort. So what will happen if one loses? Sayadaw will explain from what is explained in the sub-commentary. So Sayadaw will continue to explain from what it is explained in the commentary. To explain from what it is explained in the commentary. To explain from what